Once again, good afternoon. My name is Mark Mills. I'm one of the founders of GovDirections, and we're here today with our Gov School Series, and we certainly appreciate you taking time to come with us today. We have been doing this entrepreneur series this summer, and now we're in the fourth class, and today we're going to talk about teaming. And we have with us Danielle Miller, who is an expert, of course. She's very well thought of. She's a proven contract management professional. She assumes responsibilities of multi-phase operations through leadership, establishing strategic plans, strategies, and implementing those plans with your organization to achieve projected results that you're working on. She's experienced in commercial and government contract management, business development, proposal management, government contract within domestic and international markets, proposal management as well. She's a highly motivated, self-driven individual. She's always available when we call on her. She operates independently and she takes accountability to the function. Ability to find, optimize, and manage operational processes for committed performance and results for your company. She has a Bachelor of Arts degrees from the University of Miami in Coral Gables, and she's got a wealth of experience. And so I want to welcome you here today, Danielle. And so if you I'll go ahead and release the share so that you can take control of that and get started.
Okay, absolutely. So while we're doing that, hello, everyone. I hope everyone has had a great and productive week so far. It's always great and a pleasure to work with Mark in the GovDirections School, excuse me. Thank you for the great introduction, Mark. Yes, just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I am the founder and CEO of ESS Group, which stands for Exemplary Support Services. I have been immersed in government contracting for quite a while now and worked with multiple companies from the startup phase all the way up to multi-million-dollar companies, building out business development plans, capture management, proposal management, relationship building, you name it. I've touched a lot of different facets of government contracting, as well as we do offer and provide our training and development services directly to the government as well. So we have customers like the Urban League, Georgia State, DeKalb County, and we are now expanding internationally to Africa, to Senegal and South Africa. So that will be an interesting journey with this new door that's open. So, but today what we're gonna focus on is teaming. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. That way you guys can see. And so we're going to talk about strategic partnerships today, which is the same as teaming. Let me get this down here, so it's out the way. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we're going to talk about strategic partnerships and relationships, which Mark has a title, Teaming. It's all interchangeable. Relationships in business, just in general, is very important. And it's especially very important in government contracting. And so today I want to talk about the different types of relationships, what they mean, and how you can use that towards your business. Oh, and there goes me again. So I kind of already did an overview of who I am. And so again, like I said, relationships are huge in government contracting. It's very important to understand the different types of relationships. So you know what type of opportunities you can respond to, where you fit in the relationship, and how to—
Excuse me, Danielle. I'm not sure if you're showing your PowerPoint. You're showing us the sam.gov website.
Oh, that's
so you may
showing?
want to switch it. Yes.
Oh, okay. No, that's not what you're supposed to see. Sorry.
I didn't think so. So we're good.
Give me 1 second. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second here. Can you guys see that? Mark?
Now
yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. So there we go. Here we go. So we're back to the introduction. Thank you, Mark. And so, yeah, so basically the introduction, we're going to talk about relationships and how it's important in government contracting. So what we'll cover today, the different type of teaming relationships that are out there, basically the most common. There's so many different types of relationships, but we'll talk about the very common ones that you need to know as you're getting started. Also, why these relationships are important, and how do you find and build these relationships, and what to do when you're ready to work together. So the most common teaming relationships will be the prime subcontractor relationship, joint ventures, and your government customers. It's very important to build a relationship with your customer, and we'll dive a little bit deeper in that towards the end. So what is a prime contractor and what is a subcontractor? Now, if we were in person, I would ask you guys first before I just dive into this, because I do like interaction from the audience. But in this case, since we're in a virtual environment, I'll just go ahead and explain what those two are. So what is a prime contractor and a subcontractor? A prime contractor is the business that actually holds the contract directly with the government customer. They're responsible for the contract management, the execution, and the closeout of the contract. So they take full responsibility with that relationship with the government customer. The subcontractor, however, they are the business that is contracted directly with the prime contractor. So they perform a portion of the contract that the prime has with the government customer. So it's kind of like a tier. Think of a tier. You have your government customer, and then you have the prime contractor, and then you have your subcontractor. And so the subcontractor is typically responsible to fulfill all requirements of the contract or agreement with the prime, which means they may not be responsible for that entire contract, but there could be a portion that they're agreeing with that prime contractor that they will perform. So what are joint ventures? Joint ventures, they're a relationship between contractors who have a common interest to go after an opportunity. However, it takes both of those entities to actually pursue that opportunity. So joint ventures can be described as a contractual agreement between two or more entities that aims to undertake a specific task. Joint ventures can also be very confused with partnerships, but the difference is that partnerships are between individuals and joint ventures are between entities or a combined business. So to get a better idea of the difference between a partnership and a joint venture would be an example of a partnership will be if John Doe or Jane Doe want to form a business together, they form a legal entity together for a combined business. So for instance, if I want to form a business with Mark and we collaborate our ideas together, we can form a business which is in a form of a partnership. However, if it was a joint venture, it's more of the same concept, but you're dealing with businesses. So if it's ABC Company and 123 Enterprise, and they want to pursue an opportunity, and it requires both companies' capabilities and qualifications to meet the requirements of that solicitation, which means neither one can really go after that opportunity by themselves. It takes both of them to act as a prime, which we just described what a prime is, that contractor who has a relationship with the government, and it requires both of them to do that. Then they will form that joint venture. So they still have to form a legal entity, but they're forming it between two companies. A lot of times people will do that because they still want to remain separate entities, and they do not want to combine their businesses actually together, but only for the purpose of that opportunity. So just to kind of move along, so why are these relationships important? So now we know the common ones. It's very common to have the prime subcontractor relationship, and it's very common to have joint ventures in government contracting. But how do these relationships benefit your company? So as a prime contractor, having a relationship with subcontractors is huge. Again, I contract directly with the government as well. And we have contracts currently right now where we do subcontract work out. And we do that for the purpose of, we are not the jack of all trades. So there may be, in a training and development contract that we have, there may be some certain admin services that we don't exactly provide, or we're not subject matter experts in that area. We will subcontract that work out to someone who is. So going back to the PowerPoint, it allows subcontract work to another company to fulfill portions of the contract or scope of work that is not performed in-house by the prime. It's also a great opportunity for your company where majority of the scope of work can be performed by your company. However, there may be a small portion of the scope of work where you do not have any staff or expertise in that area. So subcontracting that portion to a company that is an expert allows you to still pursue the opportunity. So to kind of dig into that just a little bit deeper, if you're familiar with the solicitation, which is the document that's presented, that's basically the government presenting a document to say, hey, this is our need, whether it's a product or a service. And within that document, they describe in detail what they're looking for and the qualifications, certifications that they want from that contractor to pursue. Also in that solicitation, what we call the scope of work. And so the scope of work defines exactly what they're looking for. So if it's in construction, it will define the specs. If it's in training and development, like what we do, it defines what they're looking for, the type of personnel. Do they want subject matter experts? You name it. Everything is in that scope of work. So again, going back to my example of what our company does, we may pursue a contract. And there may be a portion of it where we're saying, hey, we can really perform majority of this, about 60 to 80% of this, but this one portion, we don't have anybody in-house that can do that. And if we don't utilize a subcontracting relationship, that can be called, in our world, a no-go. You have the go, which means we are going to pursue the contract. And then we have a no-go, which means, hey, we can't go after this contract. So if we do have a pool of subcontractors, it still allows us to pursue that opportunity, even though it's not something we perform in-house, but majority of that contract is performed by our company. So what are the benefits of being a subcontractor? So there's a lot of benefits of being a prime. What are the benefits of being a subcontractor, being the person on the other end of the spectrum? Well, it creates more opportunity, especially if you have a very niche industry, which over my years of consulting, I have run into a lot of companies that are very niche, like abatement, asbestos abatement, mold removal. I've even had a client who sold art and they contracted with the government. So, but it's very niche. They may not find a lot of opportunities that are specifically for what they do. However, they're a great asset to a larger contract. And so I've seen a lot of businesses build their business off of subcontracting. So just to use the abatement, for example, asbestos abatement. Asbestos abatement is one of those industries that are really tied to a construction contract. If you know anything about asbestos, it's one of those substances that have to be disturbed in order for it to be harmful. So if they're typically looking for an asbestos abatement company, it's because there's a demolition project that's a part of a larger construction project. Well, I've seen many abatement companies build their business specifically off of subcontracting and have gotten $200,000 or even $1 million subcontracting opportunities just based off of being a subcontractor to a larger construction project. So that would be a good example of why there's a huge benefit of subcontracting. Also, it's a strategy. Subcontracting is a strategy that we talk about quite often in government contracting, because it's a way that you can build up your contract history. We call it past performance, which is sort of like your business resume. And so a lot of tactics, or I wouldn't say a lot of tactics, a lot of companies, their main question is, how do I get started if I don't have any experience? When I'm looking at the solicitation that they are putting out, it's requiring at least 3 contracts that are in a similar same size or scope of work. Well, I know I can do the work. I've had a job in my field, but I don't have any history to this magnitude where I can actually pursue this contract. And it can become very, very frustrating to those who are getting started and want to get their feet wet. So a great way to build up that past performance that they're asking for in those solicitations is through subcontracting. Because as a subcontractor, the work you perform, or that percentage, the percentage of work that you perform on that contract becomes your past performance now, okay? So let me use another example just so you can really kind of grasp that idea. When we built this company as a training and development company for government contracting, I was switching from consulting into directly doing business with the government. I ran into that same issue. Well, it wasn't really an issue because it was going to be a tactic that I already knew I was going to use. But if I wanted to go directly into a prime contract with the government, I would have to prove past performance. Because I knew I didn't have that initially, what I did was through relationships that I had through consulting and other large contractors, I performed a portion of their scope, a portion of the scope of work, of the solicitation, and built up my past performance there. So now when we respond to contracts, or at least when we first start responding directly to contracts, directly with the government, we now had our past performance built up through subcontracting. So you can claim that portion that you performed as your past performance. Okay, and so what are the benefits of a joint venture? So joint ventures to most people sound so complicated. You're taking your entity and you're taking another person's entity and you're combining it together. And a lot of times, and you're forming a legal entity. And many times I would hear, why would you go through that type of paperwork just to go after a particular opportunity? Well, again, if the opportunity requires the capabilities and qualifications of both companies to qualify, again, we have ABC company, they may have the past performance, and then you may have another company that has the certifications, the licenses that are required to go after that contract, while the other one may also have the personnel. So there's this huge combination of a need for both of these companies to come together. A lot of times also with joint ventures, it's about splitting the finances and how they're going to distribute that as well, why they at the end ultimately choose to do a joint venture. And so then they, again, form that one entity and combine their experience and capabilities so they can qualify. So the benefit of forming a joint venture, and typically people will do this with a very, very large contract where it's really worth that time and that effort to do that. But it puts them in the running for that opportunity that they really have their eyes set out on. So these relationships, they're both good for contractors and the government. Again, these are common relationships, and it's very well known in the government space that they have the prime contractors, the subcontractors, and these joint ventures. And so the benefits are good on both ends. So for contractors, it allows for the business, of course, to complement and collaborate their capabilities. Again, if there's an opportunity that I want to go after, but there's that one little portion that we don't do, but I still want to go after that opportunity, that's when I go and reach out to my pool of subcontractors and see, hey, can this still be a go for us? So we're putting more opportunities on the table. For the government, they get the best combination of performance, cost, and delivery for the service. So again, if I don't perform that percentage in-house, and yet I'm not a subject matter expert in that area, and we try to figure it out on our own, then maybe the government isn't getting the best performance that they need because I don't really know how to do what they were asking for in-house. But if I'm bringing my best on that 80% of the contract, and I have a subcontractor who's a subject matter expert who's bringing their best in that 20%, the government now gets, again, that best combination of performance. So it's a win-win situation. So I will, because I have a couple other things I want to talk about. I do want to take a quick break it up a little bit and see if anybody has any particular questions before I move forward. And I will check the chat here. Oops. Does anybody have any questions before we move to another segment of the presentation? Okay, well, I guess not. Okay, all right.
Danielle,
Okay,
we do
so
have just one question. So
oh, okay.
somebody posed a question to assist small FAR regs permit advance payment for products. However, contract officers do not like to use this option. How do I get past that?
I'm sorry, Mark, what did you say?
I know it's, let's see, to assist small federal acquisition regulations for permitting, I think, advance payment for products. Contract officers don't necessarily like that option. How do you get past that, the businesses?
They don't like
Ray
the
has
option of advance payments?
I think that's what they're asking. Is that correct, Ray? Yes.
Okay, so that's where they're, yes, so the government does not typically, when they're paying out on a contract, you're right, they do not typically do advance payments. Contract is typically paid on performance. So that's going to be a whole different segment and conversation about having the right capital to actually execute a contract. And so that can be very important to have your capital up front. So if there's personnel that you need to hire or there's equipment that you need to get, you definitely want to be prepared. And that's part of the go or no go process when you're going after an opportunity, is to make sure that you can hold that contract for at least 30 days before you can expect payment from the government. And even then they can be slow on payment. You know, you're still dealing with people and processes, but the government does not typically advance money for you to execute your contract. So hopefully I answered that, but there's a lot of different financing companies that you can work with that can help you with business and contract capital. So
we are getting a couple questions there. Okay. You can, someone else asked, what's the best way to find, let me get back up here. What is a good way to find subcontract opportunities for startups?
Oh, perfect. So I'm glad that they asked that, because we're actually going to move into this right now when we talk about how to find these business partners, which in return will show you how you can find some subcontracting opportunities. So we're actually right on point, and we'll segue right into that. So how to find these business partners, and in the next slide or two, we'll actually be able to answer that question. So how to find these business partners, you can find them through networking events. Now with the pandemic, we do have virtual networking events, even though we're slowly moving out of that now. The world is opening up again. You can network and find business partners. I have found, oh my gosh, so many great business partners over the years through networking events, exchanging cards, doing the follow-up, staying on top of that relationship and finding the right opportunities to work with them. So exchanging business cards, exchanging your information, even in events like this, don't be shy to put your information in the chat. I actually built a relationship with another company. It was just a pre-bid meeting. But I put my information in the chat and said, hey, if anyone is interested, this is what we do, training and development, and this is my contact information. And I did have someone reach out to me because there was something that they could fulfill on that contract, but they didn't do the training aspect. And so they reached out to me in regards to that. So don't be shy to put your information in network, even in virtual environments. Another way that you can find business partners is through the dynamic small business search. So the SBA has a dynamic small business search. Basically how you get on that database is through your SAM registration. So if you go through your SAM registration, towards the end, they will have your SBA profile. You definitely want to click on that and fill out that SBA profile so you can become a part of the DSBS search. Okay, and so it's a really, really awesome search. I mean, it lets you search so many different ways for business. It lets you search by their NAICS code. It lets you search by certifications. If they're 8A, woman-owned small business, service disabled veteran-owned small business, it narrows it down. It lets you search by state, DUNS, keywords, you name it. So it really narrows down your search when you're looking for someone, especially a very specific company. And again, these are tools that I have used, and I've had people reach out to my company as well, because we're on the DSBS as well, when looking for other businesses. Now, why would you want to do this over just a Google search? Okay, so you can go to Google and say, hey, training and development companies, or you can go to Google and search abatement companies, or you can go to Google and search IT companies. So why is DSBS so much better than just doing that typical Google search? Well, if you go to the DSBS site, you know you're dealing with companies who are already contracting with the government or are interested in contracting with the government and probably have some idea of how to do business. And I say that because those people who are in that DSBS search have taken the time to complete their SAM registration, which is a mandatory registration to do business with the federal government. So if they took that time to complete that, they've either looked into government contracting or they're already government contractors. And so when you are going after a government contract, it's really good to know the other business has a good idea of the type of industry that you're in. Because if you just go to Google, you can find a really great abatement company. You can find a really great IT company, but are they really going to understand what you're trying to do when you really start talking about the contract? So I'm not saying you can't Google companies, but DSBS is a really good source to deal with like-minded companies. Another way to find opportunities, and this will go back to the question that someone asked about how do you find these subcontracting opportunities? Well, if you go to sam.gov and you search for opportunities in your industry, I can use construction as an example. And the reason why I'm referring to construction is because I've just had so many clients that were in construction. Just go to sam.gov. You can search for, like I said, if your industry is in construction and you do flooring, right? Look for some of the construction contracts that are out there, construction solicitations that are out there, and you can have access to, and most of the time the contracting officer will post the interested vendors list. For those who are interested in it, they will actually save that opportunity or they will sign up for the industry day for that opportunity. So if you see that list, you'll have a list of all the other companies who are interested in the same opportunity that you are. Some may be in flooring, some may be in lighting or electrical or plumbing. However, you have access to other companies who are interested in the same opportunity and who are in the same industry as you. And so what you do is you reach out to those companies and you build a rapport with them either through email or you call the point of contact and say, hey, I see that you are interested in this construction project at the University of Georgia. We'll just throw that out there. So I see that you're interested in this particular construction contract. We do flooring. Do you already have a subcontractor who provides flooring for your company? You know, there's all different types of ways that you can actually present that, but building that initial rapport, you're finding companies who are potentially primes on that interested vendors list, and you're reaching out to them to say, hey, can I be a subcontractor? And you sell your business, build that relationship and try to be a part of that contract. Even if you're not, even if they say, hey, we already have someone that we deal with, another way to build a relationship with them is find an opportunity they can be a part of. Okay, well, I found an opportunity and want to know if you can be a part of this opportunity with me. I will perform this portion and you perform this portion and try to build a relationship from there. So basically, long story short, subcontracting opportunities really come from building a good relationship with a prime contractor. Oh yeah, and one important thing that I did want to point out is that in order to get access to that interested vendors list, you do want to create an actual profile with sam.gov. Okay, so other ways to find relationships, and again, these relationships will still go back to answering that question of how do I find subcontracting opportunities. You can go to the Department of Transportation site. They have a non-small business directory, which is great if you're looking for primarily subcontracting opportunities, because these will typically be large, mid-sized to large businesses that are on that non-small business directory. We have that here in Georgia. I do acknowledge that all states might not be identical. So definitely check with your Department of Transportation to see if they have that same directory for you. But we have it here in Georgia where you can, get in contact and have access to larger businesses. So also with the Disadvantaged Enterprise and Small Business Program, that's also through the Department of Transportation, at least here in Georgia. Again, if you're in a different state, you definitely want to check and see where your state hosts that information for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise or their Small Business Program directory. And so with that, again, you have access to that company's point of contact, their information, and sometimes they give a brief profile on what that company does. And so you can reach out if they do something in your industry or they're providing something that you're looking for. Great way to have access to those companies. All right, and so we do offer at ESS Academy, I didn't realize I still have it on there, but I will mention this. At ESS Academy, which is another leg of our company, we do offer the online courses and mentorships, which within that, we do give the mentees or those who are part of the Academy access to our resources, our business contacts, and help them build relationships with other contractors, as well as develop strategic methods on how to go after opportunities. So. All right, and so now that we know what these relationships are, okay, we know how to find these relationships. So how do you create the relationship? Sometimes it's not always comfortable, especially as small business owners. We wear multiple hats, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all comfortable with reaching out to another company, or that's our area of expertise to reach out and build relationships with other companies. So what do you do when you found these relationships, you're using these tools? So how do you create this? You can reach out, of course, by calling the business. You can email them stating why you want to do business with them, as well as attach your capability statement, so they know exactly what your business does. If you don't know what a capability statement is, capability statement is typically a one-page document. It's like like a business resume. It states your NAICS code, sometimes your PSC codes, a company overview. You can have an option to even put a section on there to highlight the owner or highlight yourself if you really bring a huge value or subject matter expert to your company. Contact information, so forth. So it's sort of like a business resume. It's very commonly used in government contracting, especially when building relationships. So contracting officers ask for it, and other business partners ask for it. Even when we went over to Senegal in Africa, building relationships over there, we brought our capability statement and we utilize it still. So emailing that with a strong statement of why you want to do business with that company is very helpful. So a few helpful hints. Companies always look for, or I would say majority of the time, look for win-win situations. So make sure you know what value you can bring to that company. Before I reach out to any company to build a relationship with them, I research the company, I look at their website, I look at the services they offer, and look for any gaps. How do I fit with their company? So if I'm reaching out to another training and education company, what do I provide that's different that I can bring value to them on a contract? If we all offer the same thing and I'm reaching out to that company because, hey, maybe I just want to subcontract some work to them that we just don't want to do in-house and we want to subcontract that out. But when they look at my capability statement, they see, hey, we do everything the same. How are you bringing value? So really identifying that relationship before you reach out to them, or at least having a good idea of how you want to do business with that company before you reach out to them. So, which also leads into the second one, have an idea of how you would like to do business with them. Do you want to be a subcontractor on opportunities? Do you want to provide products or other services that you know can benefit them? So that also helps. It is not necessary, but it is good to have an opportunity present. That's one of the things that I particularly like to do. If it's someone I've already established a rapport with And I'm doing my second touch with that company just to stay in contact and continue to work that relationship. Typically around the second time, I would like to have an opportunity. So after the first relationship, we built our rapport. We established that there's some synergy there, that we can potentially work together, kind of identified how that would look. So the next touch point, I would typically like to follow up with an actual opportunity. Now that we cleared the air and we know how we're going to work together, I would send them an email and identify what your thoughts are on the opportunity. I know in the last time we spoke, we decided that I will be a good subcontractor in this particular opportunity. I found one. Please let me know what your thoughts are. However you want to word it, but coming to them with an actual opportunity is always really great. It lets them know that you're serious, that you know what you want to do, and that you're ready to move forward. So speaking of moving forward, when you are ready to move forward, what do you do? So we went through all these phases. We built a great relationship, found an opportunity. What is the safe next steps for your company? So even if it's an established relationship, I always like to have a non-disclosure agreement in place. That's not always based on, oh, I don't trust the other person with my stuff, but it's just a good business practice to have and just to get comfortable with always just putting that in place. You just never know what you may disclose in the future and how that relationship evolves, where you may disclose something, that you want to kind of keep private. So always make sure you put a non-disclosure agreement in place to protect any of your proprietary information or any other information that you may not want to be disclosed. Once you get to that point of the opportunity and you guys are ready to move forward, you email the opportunity to them. Everything sounds great. You guys discuss it. What is the next step? The next step will be a teaming agreement. And the importance of having that in place, it helps you define the roles, define the tasks, and the compensation model. So that way you're not going into the opportunity or a very lengthy proposal and you really don't know where you fit within that proposal. So as you're writing the proposal or responding to it, you really have a good idea of where you fit, how you're going to get paid, and what tasks you or your personnel are going to perform. It also ensures that the company that you're working with is committed. So if they're sending you a teaming agreement, you know that you guys are discussing this opportunity, you're spending your time to respond to it, and you know that they're committed to work with you. And also, it lowers the risk of them not moving forward after the contract has been won. So unfortunately, guys, I have seen that where there was no true commitment for a company to work with another company. They will take the pricing and the information and then win the contract and say, hey, well, since we didn't commit to this, we kind of actually want to work with another company. So, I've actually seen that happen. So it just lowers the risk of them not moving forward after the contract has been won. Most companies don't do that. To be honest with you, a lot of companies don't do that because a lot of times you have to establish who's going to be on the contract, but I have seen that done. So moving forward onto, and I will quickly go through this because I know we're getting a little bit tight for time, but I do want to touch bases on this as well. We did talk about the relationships with other contractors, but what is also very, very important in building your government contracting firm is having relationships with government customers. So a good way to build a relationship with a government customer that you want to do business with, I'm sorry, sources sought. I meant to tell you that. So through sources sought and RFI. Just to explain what a sources sought and RFI is, they're basically market research. So they're not actually documents that are put out there to actually get a contract in return. This is when a contracting officer kind of knows what they want, but they're really not sure how to put together a solicitation for it. So they'll reach out to the market, which is you, the government contractors, and do a market research. This helps them identify, should they set this aside for a certain certification, which is like 8A, Women-Owned Small Business, SDVOSB, HubZone. Should this be something that should fall into the small business category, or should this particular opportunity be for large businesses? you name it, or maybe they really aren't sure the technical aspect of what they're looking for either. Because remember, these contracting officers are not all experts in everything that they put out there. They're contracting officers, but they're not experts in, IT. So they may know they need something done, but they need the market to tell them exactly what it needs to look like. So they do that in the form of source of salt and RFI. Now, responding to these, most companies do not respond to source of salts or the RFI, which stands for request for information, because they feel if it doesn't result in a contract, why would I waste my time and resources responding to this lengthy document that's really not going to reap any return? On the contrary, they're actually very, very beneficial to your company. This is a good way to build a relationship with the government customer that you want to do business. It gives them an opportunity to view your capabilities. So depending on what they're asking for, you are now presenting your company to a government customer who did not know you before. So now they can see in detail your past performance and what your company can perform, and the fact that you're responding to something that they need immediately. They're looking for something and you're saying, I can provide that for you. So also by responding to these sources, salts, and RFIs, it opens the door to schedule capability briefings to talk more about your business. So this was one of the strategies that I use with a lot of, especially the million and above companies when they're trying to expand, this was a tactic that we use to open up and build new relationships. So after we respond to a source of salt, we will schedule a capability briefing, and now they have a whole document of everything that company does. You are basically responding to an immediate need, or at least a need that they have in some near future. And it gives you that opportunity to walk in their door and say, hey, now let's meet face to face. So you're now starting that relationship that once went from they don't know who you are to now they have so much information and now they can see you face to face. So great way to start a relationship with the government customer. Industry days, I won't go over this whole slide. I know we're getting a little bit tight for time, but industry days are sort of part of that source of salt and RFI process. Again, they will put out the document, which is that solicitation. And a lot of times they will also have what they call an industry day, which is they're reaching out to the industry to either meet them virtually, which has been huge in the pandemic, or, now they're starting to open up where they're meeting in person. And you actually get to meet the contracting officer who's over that particular opportunity. You can ask any question that you want about that opportunity, what they're looking for. You're in the same room as them. You're in the same room as them. So now you can build a relationship face to face with that contracting officer. So again, this gives you the opportunity to meet directly with the contracting officer, and people do business with people. Even though it's the government, and even though there's processes that are in place, they are still people. And especially when you're dealing with the responsibility of taxpayers' dollars, meeting certain quotas, they also have, they have a lot of responsibility as a contracting officer. So contracting out to a company that they feel comfortable with is also very important for them. So just to wrap things up, just to go back over what we covered today, we covered the common teaming relationships, which is the prime contractor, the subcontractor, and the joint venture. We talked about why these relationships are important to your company, how do you find and build these relationships, and what to do when you are ready to work together. And so here's some more information on my company. And if you also have any other questions, Mark is very familiar with my company as well. You can reach out to him directly. He also has links that he can send you if you're interested in scheduling consultation for more information. So, but yep, essacademy.net, and that is my direct line. I will also put that in the chat. That way I can get out of this and stop sharing my screen. So.
And I actually have your information I was going to share with them as well. So okay. I'll pull that up and give them the website here. It's at ESS. I'm not looking at that. It's essgroupinc.net. And there's, of course, Danielle. And now you realize why we have her here today. She really is an expert at what she's talking about. And And you can connect with her. She has a link there for connect up with her on LinkedIn, as well as her business partner, Kyle Jones. And you can actually schedule a call there to help. And I believe they help with capability statement, or is that your actual capability statement there? So we can.
That's our actual capability statement. So remember, we have two portions to the company. So that website that you're on is still really good because, you know, that's the one, our government website. Mm-hmm. So it talks about the services that we provide directly to the government. ESS Academy, if they have questions about their business and how to get started, or they need mentorship, it would be essacademy.net. So it just depends on what they're looking for. If they're looking for partnership, ESS Group will be great. And if they're looking more for, hey, I need guidance, I need to really know how to build out these strategies, build these relationships, you definitely want to go to essacademy.net.
One of the questions we had yesterday in our class was about mentorship. And here's a program that they have for you, and you can go and you can look and you can get more information, and then reach out to Danielle directly. There are some questions, so let me browse through these. How do you go about obtaining team and agreement documents?
Oh yeah, it's a really good question. There's so many different platforms. You don't necessarily have to create a document from scratch. Or you don't really necessarily have to spend hundreds of dollars on an attorney. Because I know when I first got into it, I was spending $500 to $1,000 on team, just not knowing any better. You don't know what you don't know. So I spent a lot of money on things that you really don't necessarily have to. You can get a really good team and agreement from Law Depot, Rocket Lawyer, or any of these other online platforms that can give you a generic teaming agreement, because you can always build that out and add more details into it. That's a lot more cost efficient. So if you do want to go the route and you have an attorney that you feel really comfortable with, that really knows that legal jargon, and you know you're not leaving anything important out, then definitely go with the attorney. But other than that, they do have places like Rocket Lawyer that have teaming agreements. Law Depot has teaming agreements, and I'm sure there's other platforms too. So you should be fine with those as well.
And I had a similar question about legalizing partnerships that you just spoke to, I think. So we'll move on past that one. Here's also curious, what is your language like when you approach a potential subcontractor?
You said, what does the language look like?
Yeah, what are you, how do you approach them? What is your, I think that's just the question there.
Okay, so you always want to put your own spin on it, but some of the important things that you want to talk about when you're trying to build any relationship, even if you're a subcontractor, or even if you're a prime reaching out to a subcontractor because you want them to be a part of it. Companies, again, majority of the time is looking for a win-win situation. So I would say definitely do your research on that company prior to reaching out to them. Have a good understanding of what you need from them. What are you looking for in their company? What are some of the things that you're looking to assist their company with? How can you benefit them if they decided to work with you? This is not mandatory, but this is just one of the tactics that I use, is have an opportunity available, even if it's an expired opportunity. Right? It is even just one that can give a good visualization of how you want this particular opportunity, this particular relationship to work. I've talked to companies that I would have an assumption that they would have a good idea of how we work together because they maybe have multiple contracts. But even then they were still like, okay, I'm not really sure how we would fit. And I'm like, okay, well, I attached an opportunity. I know it's not one that we can particularly go after. It's probably due in 7 days or something. But I was thinking, this is what you do, and this is what I do. What would your thoughts be in having a relationship like that? And if I found other opportunities. So my best advice is make sure you can have a good visual of how this relationship will work. So they would want to continue to build that relationship with you. As business owners, we all get very busy. We get a slew of emails every day. And government contracting, you probably get a lot of emails or phone calls from people who want to work with you. And a lot of those relationships go dead, not because they weren't good companies. You really didn't know what you were going to do with them. I don't know how this relationship is going to look. So it's up to you to feed that relationship and kind of establish what this is going to look like. So that would be my advice.
I think an excellent advice as well. And someone asked, how do you find the best opportunities for contracts for a specific industry? For example, a telephone answering service business. So figure we give ourselves a little bit of a pitch here as well. Go to govdirections.com
Yeah.
and you can do a good, easy keyword search, or we actually have categorization of bids using, NAICS codes as well. But you can come in under services and you can find the telephone answering contracts are out there right now. So that's always a really good way to do that and make sure you're following that. Here's a call center contracts that are open today, and you'll see state and local and federal there, and you open those up and you can pursue those listings together. So these are all excellent questions. We've come to, I think, the end of the hour, and I want to thank you again for talking with our group, Danielle. Always a pleasure. And just as a reminder, this is a recorded version and it's part of our Gov School summer school series, and we'll be placing this at govschool.com. Just click on schedule. And we had, of course, Cynthia Harper last week talked to us about the capability of statement and branding and communications, and Danielle's mentioned that as well today. So we place right here for the current session on teaming, and we look forward to you joining us next week for these with Chris Haynes, who's kind of wrapping everything together, pulling it all together each week for us as we continue this 7-week series. Any final comments, Danielle?
I would just have to say, I honestly just want to throw that out there about Gov Directions. Mark, I think I told you, I use that all the time. And I use it with my mentees as well as other platforms too, because I always like to give people a variety, but we have found so many opportunities from Gov Directions. And I'm not just saying that because I'm doing the school. I just want to really throw it out there that it has helped a lot of the mentees that I work with. And I just want to honestly put that out there. It's a really good platform.
Well, thank you very much, and I really do appreciate your talking with our group today. I'll leave with a sample capability statement. This is our own. Always have that ready to go and drop it in the box. I've saw some really good descriptions of individual companies and what they do. So what I would encourage you to do is copy that, paste it in as a note, and have it ready to go whenever you get on a session like this, and you just drop it right in with your capability statement. And it is always helpful. At the very least, the contracting officer is seeing it, and then all the others as well. So thank you. So everybody have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next Wednesday to continue the series.
Okay, bye everyone.